Hey DIYers, welcome back to part 2 of this foundation watering system. Now if you're just joining us, don't worry, I'll have a link at the end of this video and there's one down in the description for part 1. So if you want to go leave and watch part 1 now, go ahead and come on back and see part 2. So for a quick recap of what I'm doing here, I'm putting a watering system in the ground around the foundation of my house along the border edge of my fence. And it's all going to be hooked into my current in-ground sprinkler system. The quick and dirty of why I'm doing this. Well, I live outside of Houston, Texas, and it gets quite hot here in the summer. In fact, this summer we went 40 plus days without any rain or so little it made zero difference. I've got a slab on grade foundation and all the dirt around me is nothing but clay. The only topsoil I have is what came with the sod when I built the house. So in those conditions, when it's hot like that and no rain, that clay starts to shrink. And when it shrinks, it pulls away from the foundation. And it can pull away quite a bit, and not just at the top, it can pull away quite down deep inside there also. And when it does that, it now puts my foundation at risk of cracking and sinking. So the watering system is going to help prevent that. And for a more in-depth, detailed explanation of why I'm doing this, and to see if this is something you've got to do at your house, you'll have to go back and watch part 1 where I go into a lot of detail at the very beginning of the video. Now in part 1 we had a lot of work we had to do, and it got us up to where I've got the trench made for my drip line to go in. And that's where we're at today, is we're going to start out putting in some landscape fabric. And we still have a fair amount of work that's got to be done to get this project done. But when it's all said and done, it's definitely going to be worth it. So let's get going on it. All right, next we got to deal with the landscape fabric. Let's take this landscape fabric and I'm going to cut it into 10-inch wide sections. And I'm going to use this pea gravel that's behind me. I'm going to have pea gravel on the bottom, put the pipe in, pea gravel around it, close this fabric up over it, and I've got some pins to put in there to anchor it in. This paper I have here is a 5-ounce paper. It's woven versus non-woven, and what's the big difference is just in the words. It's woven as far as the fabric goes. And I saw a couple videos where people were doing French drain lines, and they talked about how the non-woven would clog. And ever since they went to woven, it didn't have that issue. Now, my problem is not the water coming through it and getting in. My problem would be the water that's inside getting out. And this actually says on it needs to be covered to keep it from breaking down from the UV radiation. Now, a little bit about where I got my supplies. Basically what I did is I got on Google and I typed in wholesale irrigation sprinkler supply companies near me, and some come up. Now, there's a sprinkler warehouse you may have heard of, but they don't do in-house shopping. It's all online. You can't go in the store, and I didn't want that. So I found a company called, I don't know if it's Ewing or Ewing, it's E-W-I-N-G. And basically all I had to do was fill out a business account, put my name, address, it's a cash account, bam, I go in and I think I got 36% off everything versus what you would get if you went in and bought it, which was a heck of a deal. Save yourself a little money, go online, look for wholesale or warehouse supplies for whatever you need, see if you can find one, fill out an account. It's a cash account, meaning you're going to pay right there, there's no credit given. Go in and get yourself a discount. I did the same thing with Sherwin-Williams. So I'm just going to take a tape measure and a red marking pen here and mark off 10 inches. How'd I come up with 10 inches? Well, the bottom's about 2 1/4, so 2, 2, 2, and I wanted to fold over each way. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's how I came up with it. Now I'm just going to take my Olfa knife. I got a brand new blade in here. We're going to see if we can just cut this like slicing bread. Thought about doing this on the miter saw or table saw, and I'm afraid the blade would grab and just rip and not cut. So far it's cutting pretty easy. Well, that works nice. Alrighty, there's kind of a felty side and a plastic smooth side. I'm gonna have the plastic smooth side to the dirt. I don't know what's the right way and wrong way, but I don't want that felty stuff getting all in the dirt. So we'll take and roll this out. Now this roll came as 36 inches by 50 feet. So cut it into 3 sections. I got 150 foot. Now the pea gravel I'm using, I just got at Home Depot. And the bags, I got like 12, 13 bags. If you get 12 bags, you get a little discount. And I went with the bags because the smallest you can get is a ½ a yard anywhere I found. And that's gonna be way more than I need, and I really got nowhere to store the unused part. And I figured I'm gonna need maybe a ¼ yard to do this. So I just got the bags, and I'm gonna have about 8 inches or so sticking off the end here. My pipe goes in, I want some to wrap back over like this. I'm just gonna take and fold it in half and set it down in there. And then I'm just gonna take a little of this gravel and put in there to hold it in place. Hardest part's gonna be keeping dirt and stuff off of this fuzzy side. And this pea gravel, I think, is anywhere from 3/16 to 3/8. Okay, I've come to the end of this one and the start of a new one. And so what I'm gonna do is make sure that I overlap it about 6 inches. And that should be enough overlap that I don't have to worry about stuff bleeding into it. Okay, for the turn, I thought it was gonna be a little harder than it was. It's okay that it wasn't. But basically, I roll out a section, I fold it in half, like I've been doing, and I just kind of pleat it. So there's a fold pleat there, and that gets me around this corner, and still gives me enough to fold over. So there's a little pleat right there. I thought I was gonna have a ton of pleats in it, but nope. Turns out I don't. I've gotten all my landscape fabric in and a thin layer of gravel in the bottom. I was originally had an idea of taking a jig and going along the bottom here and making sure I had 3/4 of an inch of gravel in the bottom. It didn't work very well, so I abandoned that, and I'm just gonna eyeball and kind of mix it around like this to make sure I got it all in there. But I got it all the way around and done. And then where this run ties in here and down there at those two ends, I ran this fabric under this one, and then what'll happen is I've got gravel in both sides, is when I get this all teed in, this will come back over and wrap around there and close that up, and you'll get to see how I do that. So now it's time to put the drip line in. So I started at this longest part of the run, which is right here, and this is 1/2 inch drip line, pretty thin walled. It's got drip emitters on each side of the pipe. As far as plugging the end, what I've got is this little fitting here, got a screw end on it, and then this presses into the end of the pipe. Then I have this PVC cap that screws on here like this. It caps it off and doesn't allow it to leak. They told me I don't have to put any kind of pipe tape or dope or anything on here or glue it, put it down, and it's good. And to get it on there, it is a little tough to get on that pipe, but that's how you want it so the water pressure doesn't blow it off. This pipe has a lot of memory to it. I've got to kind of weigh it down with a brick like I am here to get it started. And then I rolled out a few feet of it. And when I'm rolling this out, I'm trying to roll it into the trench that I made into the fabric because I'm trying to keep it clean. And I've got a blanket here that I'm laying it on so it's not laying in the dirt, getting this grass and dirt on it that I got to clean off. And then I'm putting gravel in between each of the emitters to hold it down. Now you see in this section here, I've got a lot of grass pieces on the fabric, and it doesn't come off very easily because the fuzzy side's on the inside, so it sticks to it. But I am going through as I'm putting this in and kind of picking that off. Now some of you might think, well, why don't you just get a leaf blower? And I thought of that, but I got a lot of debris here and I'm worried I'm just gonna blow it all in there and just make it even worse. As we go through, I put the gravel in, I pack it in, leave the emitters open. I'm leaving the emitters open so when I get this all hooked up, I need to test it. I want to make sure that I got water coming out of each one of these sites. Because if I don't, then it's either plugged or bad or something. I'll have to try and fix it. And the gravel's to hold it down because like I said, it's got a lot of memory and it won't stay down in there very well. So as I get so far, I take and unroll the pipe, try and roll it into the fabric itself, bring my blanket down with it, lay it on the blanket, set a brick on the pipe itself to hold it down while I'm doing that, because if the pipe pulls up through the gravel, it doesn't squish back through there, and I basically got to go in, dig all that gravel out and replant it, and it's a pain. So we just kind of go through in a little section at a time, and it goes fairly quickly. All right, we're at the turn. Put my blocks here to hold it down. Pipe actually sits in these turns really nicely, at least it did in that one up there. And again, same thing, I just unroll this, try and put it in. We'll get it up here. But it lays in there pretty nice. Nice gentle curve. And it's easy to see the emitters because there's a little bulge right in the pipe. So this pipe cuts real easy with a sharp pair of scissors. We're at an area where I'm going to have a T here. What I need to be careful of is where these emitters are. So there's one that's going to land about right here, and that's just fine. So I'll cut it right in here. That gives me a little extra. Actually, it's probably going to be just about right. I won't have to take much off of that. I'll fill this rock in, and then I'll get this line run in, and I'll show you how we're going to do this T. Because I'm going to try and do it so that it's all covered and wrapped real nice. Now with this short run, what I need to do is make sure I got plenty of end from the emitter for this fitting to go on. The same thing for down there. But before I do that, I want to make sure, like this emitter is right here, which is what, 6-8 inches from the end. I'd like that a little closer, but what I need to do is see where that emitter is going to hit at the T, so I know, yes, I can move it, or no, I can't. And so the emitter is right here. It's going to T here, and the other one's clear back here. I can move it that way a little bit and put the emitter about right here, and that'll be okay. I'll try and have the other one about right here, and then it'll go here and should cover this area. I thought about heating this up to push it on, but I'm worried it'll screw up the pipe. There. Set this here. Oh, here's my T. Got it taped. So when I get this all done, no gravel goes inside there, because once it does, it's going to be hard to get out. We'll do this end first. I want it to about right there. We'll cut off about that much. I'd rather it be a little long than too short. I'm going to make a hole in this fabric, feed the pipe through it like that. My T, press it on, make sure there's no gravel in there. Now it's kind of sealed up. I put a little gravel over here. Hold that down. There's my emitter sitting in there real nice. This end takes off and leads to the valve. And there. It's all teed in. So before I can get this tied in, I got to cut out this fitting here so I can put the new valve over here and join it in. So I've dug out 1 inch or 2, close to 2 inches under all of this so I could work. So what I'm going to do is try something that I've seen on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and we'll see if it works. When the pipe's dead in, they dead in about here and here. So if you cut right through here, you won't touch any of these pipes. Now I've turned the water off. I'm going to start over here because there's going to be some water coming out. First, cut this in half. I'm going to score this, and then you'll see what I'm going to try and do next. I'm just going to try and score about half to 3/4 of the way through here. Now, let's go get the next tool and we'll see if this is going to work. All right, so what I'm going to do is try and take a heat gun, warm this up, and peel this off of here. And I can clean that pipe up and reuse it to attach a new fitting. So we'll see. And it goes to 1,050, and I got it turned all the way up. Well, I don't think it's going to work. I'll tell you this, they make it look a whole lot easier on that Instagram and TikTok. Well, that didn't work worth a lick. I mean, it was kind of working, but this pipe was pretty deformed and had flat edges no matter what I did. And then this one I cut, tore something. I ordered a tool off of Amazon that's supposed to be coming today. So I thought what I would do is take the heat gun, heat this up, and get it to just twist out of here, because I don't know if the tool I ordered is going to work in here. It should, and that didn't work. Thing is this is Schedule 40 pipe, but it's very thin walled. In fact, I'll show you when I cut this off. So you see, it's very thin walled. Compare it to this Scheduled 40 pipe, how much thicker walled that is. Now that might have made a difference in that technique I just tried using, why they used a thin walled pipe on this. I don't know if that's typically just what they do for in-ground sprinkler systems, or they were cutting corners, or this is how they did it back in 2008. I don't know. But everything I'm replacing it with is going to be this thick walled Scheduled 40. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do, get the rest of it put together, so when that tool comes, we'll be ready. I can just get this all fitted. So I'll get my pieces and we'll start to put it together. Okay, so here's our pieces. So here's our new valve. It has an arrow that tells you the water flow direction. This is a pressure reducer for the drip line. This is my 1-inch T for down there. Got a 1-inch elbow, 2 3/4 inch elbows. The pipe going into this is 1 inch, 1 inch. This is a 1 inch, so it's going in at 1 inch. Actually, it goes this direction. And then it's a reducer down to 3/4, because the pipe that leads to the sprinkler valves is 3/4. The incoming water line here is 1 inch, and this is all 3/4 going to the sprinkler valves itself. So it's going to sit in here like this, and then I'll have here, here, and then I've got a 3/4 pipe that's going to go down this direction to hook into it. The old valve box is obviously too small, so I got this big one here. I'm gonna set it in here this way so everything fits in here. Because of having to put this on here, I've got to run it that way. If I didn't have to have that pressure reducer, I'd have done it this direction. And I looked at doing it, but it's just not gonna fit all underneath there. So that's how this is gonna fit. And then I got this dug out under here because I'm gonna put landscape fabric under here and some gravel bed. The box will sit onto that, and the landscape fabric will come up on the sides of it and dirt all around it, and you'll see. I'm not gonna worry about these parts yet. I wanna get these two put in. This is gonna be the hardest, is getting this in and that in at the same time. Luckily, this has got some slop to it. All this will be easy. So once this is in, then I can measure this, the piece of pipe here and here, because it's all going to depend on where this has to sit in order for it to fit under the box. And I don't want that pipe coming over here too far, because it's got to run in this groove here and hook into the drip line system. Got all that glued up and set, and I put those two 1-inch fittings under each one of these valves just to kind of hold them up so they're not dangling. So here's my 3/4 pipe. Goes from this inside fitting to here. And as you see, because how the valves are in and offset over this direction, and I really couldn't put it on that side because of how it's all set up, it runs like this and it's going to hook in here. So I've got a fitting here. What I'm looking at doing is putting this on here and basically having this snake around up into there to attach. And it may wind up probably having one drip hole probably right in here in order to get there, and I'm okay with that. So I'll cut this, go ahead and glue it into there. I'm still waiting on Amazon to deliver my new tool so I can finish putting this together and we can get this hooked up and I can see if this thing's gonna work. From where this is to where that has to go is kind of an uphill grade. Luckily this pipe will kind of flex some. Now I'm most likely gonna have to cut some grooves out for these pipes because I want this to be down where when the grass is at its height, it's only just a little bit above this. I'm probably gonna have to drop it about 1 inch or 2. So the tool came and this is it. It's a reaming bit. I got it in a set. This is for a 1-inch pipe used for PVC, CPVC, and I think you can use it on ABS. I'll double check that. This little collar fits inside here like this, and then this bit, which has 4 sides that you can change when it gets dull, reams out the pipe. Let's give it a whirl and see what happens. You can tell right now I'm gonna have to get my vacuum cleaner, vacuum it out. One thing about this bitch, you have to monitor how deep you go, because it'll just keep going if you don't. And I just know by the other fittings, it's about 1 inch in and you're at the bottom. And it did a really nice job. It's smooth. And that's the first time using that tool and it worked really slick. So here's the little bitty piece that was left over. It pulled right out of there. See some of the shavings. So I'll vacuum this out. Now the real challenge is gonna be this one here because I can't afford to screw that up. Otherwise I gotta go get a new valve. Another thing, you gotta make sure you're good and straight. Vacuum it out. Just to show you how snug a fit it is, this is a 1-inch pipe and that is very snug to get in there. That thin-walled stuff is why it was all sloppy. So as you can see, it's pretty clean. I'm still gonna have to sand a little bit and clean it up and get some of this blue cement off of the edge here. The big question is gonna be when I put it back together, does it leak? And let's hope it don't. Got these all cleaned out real nice. I got paper towels stuffed up in here right now to soak up water because when I was all done, I took my vacuum cleaner and vacuumed it out one more time and it's sucking water from the line and you can't have it wet when you go to glue it. So I got the paper towels in there right now soaking it up and getting it dry. Now this tool worked really well. Really well. I'm quite pleased that I bought it. I mean, yes, I could have cut this off and cut this off, but I'd wind up having to buy more valves, more tubing. Now, I will say there are a couple pieces that were still left in there that it didn't get. They were real easy to get out. I just took a small X-Acto blade like this and kind of peeled it up because it's very thin and the glue's really not holding it much, and you just peeled it up and got the edges peeled up and peeled around it and it came right out. It's nice and smooth everywhere. All I got to do now is just line this up like that, take a measurement, and then I'll get this put in and that'll tell me where this sits, and then I can measure what I need for here. And I've kind of pre-fitted to see how loose this was in here, and it is a little loose. The brand new one, I tested against it, it is a little tighter in that one, but I think once the glue's in there, it'll seal it up. And I'm doing this piece first because I've got a little play in order to get that piece together. All righty.
So again, I'll just put it right here, take a measurement. Okay, the box is gonna sit about like that. You see this going here, and my connection pipe is clear up here. I've got this fitting here, which goes in here. I had to get a coupler for this to fit onto this pipe. And then I got this flex piece. I saw this and thought this is perfect. This will fix my issue of being off. The other thing it's going to fix is this goes uphill and bending. So this can do this and over, and I can hook directly into there. I'm going to have some gravel under here. It's going to go about right here. So I can put this in here. This tubing will go up there. I can have a solid empty piece of tubing and not worry about there being a drip emitter in it to hook into here like this. All I need to do is mark where I want to cut that. This about right there. Now, I'm not very good at using this to cut a very straight line, but it's what we got. The last piece of the puzzle. So I took rebar, put in here like you can see, create my S-shaped so it's in place so I can take my measurement. This all glued in and set. I just need to take a measurement. And like I say, I got a little flexibility here and I got some here. If I have to, I'll widen my trench out so this will swing, but I think it's gonna work just fine. Now this pipe comes in 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch. This is 3/4. And it's designed for irrigation type systems, designed to be put in the ground, but what it's not designed to do is be under constant water pressure. And this won't be. When the valve's turned off, the water is not going to be under pressure here. But it's made to be buried, it's made for irrigation and like this. How am I too short? So I cut this exactly 2 inches too short, and the reason is cut on the wrong pencil line. It's okay, I got more tubing. I just know I need it to be 2 inches longer than this. This goes to show, measure twice and cut once. We are hooked in and done. And I'm gonna wind up having one drip emitter right here, which isn't bad. It'll be all right. It'll just cover this area. Now, let's turn the water on and see if we got a leak. All right, well, that's no good. Make sure that's the only leak I got. Now this one's tight. That's quite unfortunate. But I don't have a leak here or anywhere else, just right there. That little bit of slop was just enough. I don't know if I'd have caked more glue in there, if it had made a difference or not, but I had a couple, 3 leaks. All right, well, I'd go get a new valve, cut it here, splice it on, and I'll have to put a splicer in here somewhere. It's all right, I gotta get some more waterproof wire nuts anyway. I still like the tool, it worked well here. Just didn't work on that pump. I was off just enough and made it loose enough, it didn't work. But everything else is good. Okay, got it all replumbed in, put a splicing fitting there, but it's all good and tight. I happen to be reading the directions just to double check on the primer and the cement. And 1, the primer needs to still be wet when you apply the cement. I think I did that okay. And 2, before you test this, it needs to set to about 2 hours to test to 180 PSI. Well, I didn't quite go 2 hours. I know I did an hour, but I still don't think that's why that failed. Because everything else held. Basically why this failed was because this thin-walled pipe didn't give a good snug fitting on that bit inside here to drill it out. And what happened was, is I actually drilled some of the inside of the valve itself, which made it loose and it come loose and it leaked. Now let's get the pumps hooked up while we're waiting. This is zone 3, and here's the wire I cut for zone 3, and it's a red wire to red wire. It doesn't matter which one of these goes where, but this is my power line, so I don't need that. Here we go. And these are waterproof wing nuts. I may have to just cut them to get them off. I want to, but it looks like I'm gonna have to. Alrighty, it's been about 2 hours. Cross your fingers. Here we go. Water is on. Dry as it can be. No drips anywhere. Now it's time to test the watering system. Looking for water to drip right out of there. All right. I see it. There's water dripping out. Hallelujah. Water there. Water dripping there. Let's go clear over here where it's about a 100-foot run and see what it looks like. Looky there. We got water dripping out, and the flow volume looks the same clear over here, which is an easy 100, maybe 120 feet away, as it does right here at 12 feet. Check that run clear down there, which is about 50, 60 feet. Yes, baby. We have 0 leaks. I can hear the water going through. No leaks whatsoever anywhere. No dripping, nothing. And I couldn't be more thrilled. You don't know how thrilled I am that this worked. Because my worry was, is I'd have a big, huge amount of dripping right here about 8 foot away. But when you get 120 feet away, by how the line runs, they have very little drippage. So what I'm gonna do is go around and eyeball each drip emitter, make sure there's water coming out of it, and then we're gonna seal this thing up. Gone through, checked everything. Now it's time to fill this and cap it. I've got my bucket of gravel here, just filling in. And I'll go down, a few feet. I use my hand to kind of spread it out. I got a 2x4 here. I just tap it in to kind of pack it some. Kind of lets me know if I'm low. Now I can't get this too full to where you won't get much overlap. If I wind up doing that, I just scoop some out and move it down. I want to be able to get a full overlap each direction. And how I'm folding this is based on the slope. So the dirt's going to slope from the house this direction. Whether this makes a difference or not, I have no idea. But this is just what I'm doing. So because of that, I fold this side first and then this side second, only because if water runs this direction and washes mud, it won't wash it in this way. Now I know it's going to be completely full and tapped in, and that's probably not an issue, but this is what I'm doing. Then I just hold that in place, fold this, and I bring it back here like this. Then I take one of these hooks and put it in over it like this. Now, go through that many layers of fabric can be a little hard. I do that. Now I know I'm in the dirt. I hammer it the rest of the way. I don't hammer these in to start because I did a little test. It doesn't take much tapping and you've already poked a hole in it. I kind of do it by hand and then drive it the rest of the way with the hammer. What I try to do is put them every about 27, 28 inches. I was gonna try and go 3 foot, but it's just too far. And I gotta stay to the outside of my pipe so I don't poke a hole in it. Okay, I'm in dirt. And down we go. And then it tees in down there, and I'll show you how we're going to do that tee. You have to get a little ways down, because if you don't, when you go to close this over, you see it closes up ahead of you. So what I'm going to do is wrap this side first. A little gravel down in there. I've already filled this. I'll set this block right here to hold that. Actually, I got a seam right here where 2 pieces meet. Put that brick right there. As this won't fold up because it's running underneath there. My Olfa knife here. And I'm going to cut down in there as deep as I can. I don't want to cut up at the surface. I want to cut down deep inside the hole, if you will. And we wrap this over and then this over. Take this, fold it over like that. One of these pins, and right there's where it ends. And drive it in there. Straddle my pipe. I'm going to take one and put it in here to hold this. There. Fold this over, fold that over. Put it right there. Put another one right in here. And there, all pretty. Alrighty, I'm up to this first curve here. Here, all the way down to that end, completely wrapped and done. As far as doing these curves, real easy. Just like before, I fill the gaps with stone. Now on this curve, it's a little wider than the others, so I gotta be careful. I may have to take some out if, nope, I think I'll be okay. I get it folded over to the curve, and I just hold it there because I'm gonna wind up putting a stake probably here, here, and here. If I need to, I may put another one right here. Keep it closed. Yes, that's why I do it by hand. That was actually the pipe I was trying to drive it through. Then I come back, finish getting this. All right, got it all folded up, and I got to about right here and ran out of my little spikes. I was roughly about 2 short. So I just ran to Home Depot and got some more. They didn't have the 6-inch. I had to get 4-inch because I really didn't want to drive clear over to the sprinkler place where I went, because that's an hour round trip just for 2 of these. So I just went and got that. And as you can see, I got primer put on that. I got primer put on these holes that I caulked over down here, and that's all set. I'll give that a few hours, and once that's dry, I'll paint it. The next thing I need to do is get this box fitted down in here. I originally was going to have the box go in this direction, but because of just the way it was going to sit, I didn't like it, so I decided to go this way. And I've had to play with it to see where it's going to go exactly, because it sits too high as it is now. So I'm going to have to cut out around these pipes so this will sit down in there deeper. And I'm trying to get it to where it's at about grass level. So we'll see how close we'll get. I may not get there. I just got to cut around individual pipes. I got this all dug out, I think, where I want it. I've got little short sections, 1.5 inch pipe put underneath each one of these to hold them up so they don't flopping in the breeze. I'm gonna put one here. I don't want to leave it like this, because with water and that, dirt's gonna wash in here and get all over it. What I'm gonna do is, you'll see, is I'm gonna get some landscape fabric and put in here. So let's get this cut first. So let me get this set where I want it. All right, with each one of these marked off, what I'm gonna do is take and go up 3 inches in the center of this mark and drill a hole. I'm gonna come back with my jigsaw and cut these out. Now all of these 1.5 inch will work. The only one I need a bigger bit for is this one, and a 2 1/8 Forstner bit I've got. So that's what I'm gonna use. And I want the top of my hole at 3 inches. And I'm not drilling these holes really extra big. I want them just kind of fit over it with just a little bit of play. All right, I got this all fixed like I needed to be. I had to make several adjustments. Wound up going from 3 inches to about 5 on most of them, 4 on this. Got them all honed out and like I wanted. This stuff sands really easy with this little sandpaper thing on this Dremel. The jigsaw goes through this very easy. It's not real hard like you might think to cut. 120 grit sandpaper here is great. Perfect to sand the edges off so they're not sharp. Now I did have to go through and dig out a little more around the edges to get it set where I wanted. Got the pipe cut for the sport here, so it's good and steady. Got one under this is good, one under here and here. In fact, I wound up taking too much out and had to put a little bit back, but it fits in there real nice. And if you're wondering, the integrity of this is still pretty good. I mean, I kept all this for support. This one's still whole here. I got a lot here. So, I mean, it's still pretty, yeah, it's flexing some, but it's still pretty solid. Fits right over, easy as can be. The wires for the valves fits up in there like that. It's good and steady. None of the pipes are touching tops of the holes I grooved out. Level wise, it's sloped that direction, which is how it wants to be. Back of the yard is that way. The water runs down this direction. It runs over towards that way of the fence. So the fact that it's sloped like that is perfect. And then it's going to be perfect as far as how much above grade it's going to be for the sod and everything else. And this will go right over it and fit just fine. Next, I'll go cut my piece of landscape fabric, fit underneath this to put my gravel. It's 36 inches wide. The 36 inch part will go this direction, and then I've got it 43 inches long, 8 1/4 inches, 8 1/2 inches go up on each side. So I cut it long enough so 8 1/2 inches will be up on this side. I just got to get it fitted under here and then cut for all the openings. Not really sure how to get this under here. And I'm gonna have it go under the wire. Now the key is to make sure I get it cut in the right spots. Put my spacers back in. Let me go get some gravel and we'll fill this up. I just got gravel called mountain granite. It's not sharp edges, it's kind of rounded edges so it won't cut into anything. And I'm just going to have the gravel come to about bottom of the pipes. And the way I got the landscape fabric on the outside, that way water happens to get in here and there's standing water, fabric will hold back the mud and it'll still just be gravel in here and not mud on the gravel. Let me go get some tape, tape this up so a bunch of it doesn't go outside the fabric. I went over and painted all the primered spots, got that done so it can be curing overnight. I got one last thing to do before I can start filling in with dirt, and that is I got to change out my controller. Now my controller has 8 slots, but it's only a 4-valve controller. I thought I could take a screw out of here, put it in number 5 and 6, and I'd get it to work, but it doesn't. So I bought another one. Now, this is a Hunter XC. The new one I bought is a Hunter X Core. Basically the same thing, just an upgraded, newer version. One thing I like about this is it has a manual 1 station and a manual all station. The new one doesn't have that, but I went ahead and got it with 8. I only need 6, but I got room for upgrade if I need it. So it should be really easy. I'm gonna take a picture of which color wire goes to which valve here. I know I've got yellow wired up to my 5th zone for the watering system, so that's that. Real easy to take out. I'll take out these wires first. There's 2 screws here we take out, it slides off. I'm gonna take these loose and pull the electrical line out. This controller works just fine. It's just I didn't have 2 extra zones on it. This is low voltage, so not like you're gonna electrocute yourself without unplugging it. I'm hoping the new one's the same size and it goes in these same holes. And there it is. You see, the new one's not much different. Just doesn't have the all manual. This is an 8 zone. This is called a Hunter 800i X Core. 800 stands for 8 zones. The I stands for indoor. Replacing this, like mine's indoor, okay. But if yours is outdoor, make sure you get the outdoor one. It'll be an 800O. Comes with the instructions. It comes with new pins and nails. Oh, it comes with this already hooked in. It's just got screws all the way across. Might get lucky and they're all the same holes. We'll see. And yes, it fits in the exact same holes. Yay! Let me get this put through here. Throw them into the same hole. Couldn't be easier. It has a 3rd hole, but they didn't put it in and I'm not gonna bother with it either. There's a little yellow tab here that you pull out. Activates the battery. Remember, the white wire is our power. Now to go into the C. I know my yellow goes in number 5. Get my phone here and see which one goes in 1, 2, and 3. Green is 1 and blue is 2. Orange is 4, red is 3. Now the brown wire is for 6. And I'm not gonna hook it up yet. Now I just need to rehook my power up. Goes through this little hole right here. Now just like the other one, this has got a sensor. If I wanted to hook a rain gauge outside, plug it in. And on it is. Now all I need to do is I'm gonna program in the date, time, and I'll get the 5 valves set and we'll test them out. I'm gonna go turn on station 1. You should start to see the sprinklers going. Yay! Tomorrow morning, we'll get a load of dirt ordered, get this thing finished up. So this is 3 yards of topsoil I'm about to shovel, and I get it from a local guy that's really close to me. And he mixes in some red sand with his topsoil, about 20%, which helps it retain the moisture and keeps it from shrinking up really bad like the clay does when it does get dried out. Now you can see I've already filled about halfway around that valve box, and I did it all by hand, taking a 1x3 and a 2x4, packing it really hard and tight around all those exposed pipes on the sides of them, underneath. I wanted them well supported, so when I put dirt over the top of those, there wouldn't be any voids, and it wouldn't cause the top dirt to push down on those pipes and possibly break them or bow them or anything like that. And I also packed the dirt really tight against the fabric so that no dirt would get between the landscape fabric and the valve box. And as far as the rest of it goes, I'm gonna fill it in a couple layers also, pack between each one, and I'll just kind of walk around and pack it down with my foot between each layers until I get it full. Because I want the dirt around that valve box to be well packed tight so it holds all that in place and it doesn't move. And as far as the rest of the trench, I just dump in wheelbarrow loads of dirt and I just spread it around even and level with a tined garden rake. I don't worry about getting the slope right now because once I pack it, it's gonna pack down. I'm gonna have to do a second fill anyway. And as
far as along the fence edge goes, again, I'm just dumping the dirt in there, raking it around smooth and level with the ground around it. And I'm just making sure I got a couple inches at least of that concrete border exposed, because when it's all said and done, my sod will go on there and then I'll have grass. And yes, I wheeled 3 yards of dirt by hand, 1 wheelbarrow at a time, to the backyard until I got it all finished. And in 100-degree heat, it is quite the workout. And as far as along the side of the fence, same thing. I'm just dumping it in by the wheelbarrow load. I'm taking the garden rake, smoothing it out, level to the dirt, not worry about any kind of slope. I just make sure I got at least 2 inches of that concrete border exposed for right now. So it's all filled, and I watered it down with the hose, and then when I ran to Lowe's to get this plate packer, I turned the watering system on, and I probably shouldn't have, because where it's really wet, it just sinks down through it and splashes and makes a big old mess. Plate packer takes it down a good inch, and I figured it would. I'll plate pack over this, and then I'd come back in, fill more dirt, and pack some more. So the plate packer worked really well. It didn't work really well. It worked really well where it wasn't too soft, it wasn't too wet. Packed it very, very nicely. In a couple areas where it was just too wet and too sloppy, it sunk down in there and wasn't any good. But it did really well along here. It got this really packed, but I was really worried about 4 or 5 spots that it screwed up my tubing and the rock around it and the fabric and everything. And I dug down to the fabric just to look at it, make sure it was still intact, it wasn't ripped apart, squished, smashed, or anything. And they were all good. The one area that was just absolute gooey, sloppy mud looks great. And I will tell you that that dirt is very well packed down there, and it's still moist. So 2 things I learned. 1, don't water it so much. 2, I think I can ease up on the amount of time I'm using this, because that ground's really wet. I've been doing it every day for 25 minutes. I'm gonna cut that back to 15 and see what we get. And it may be I get to go every other day. As you can see, it's well packed and it's hard. Now in some areas it's still a little spongy where it's really wet. I'm gonna put more dirt in here. I haven't decided if I'm gonna hand pack it, get the plate packer again and risk that, or get a sod roller that you can fill up with water and just roll it. Because what I wanna do is along the fence, I need it to slope away from the fence all the way around. And so from here, it's gonna slope this direction. So when it rains, water will hit and run down to here, and this will be kind of a little channel for it to drain towards the front of the house. And the same with the back of the fence, I'll have it slope away from the fence so it runs this direction. On the house, same thing. It slopes away from the house into a little channel that'll run it out to the front yard where it's supposed to drain. Got it all filled in. Contour it like I wanted. What I did was I just took a 2-foot level and I made sure it had a slope to it, screed it around all the way around. Then I just went and rented a sod roller. For those of you who don't know what a sod roller is, it's basically a metal, or in this case it was a plastic tube with handles on it that's hollow inside that you can fill up with water, and that's what gets your weight. Depending on how full it is, obviously, is how much it weighs. And so then I just took it along and rolled all this in really nice. Around my sprinkler box, I got it kind of sloped like this, away from it, although around there, when it gets to here, it's flat, because as the water runs down this direction, it comes around and goes that way. And so this is the gully for it to run through. And I got all along my fence, got it exposed like I wanted. Now this doesn't necessarily slope everywhere. It either has a slight slope or it's level. From that end to here, it slopes down towards the front yard. So water, when it hits there, is gonna channel its way down this way anyhow. Now I was gonna wait to put any sod down, because I'm actually gonna strip all of this and redo this and recontour it so that I quit having water puddle around that sprinkler valve like it has been. It needs to be recontoured so it slopes down there. Problem is, we're getting in that time of year, we're getting afternoon thunder showers, and every time it rains, the water drips off my roof, since I don't have gutters, drips, as you can see, right along this dry spot right here. It winds up hollowing out my dirt, leaving a little trench down along through here, causing some of it to wash away. And we got rain showers yesterday afternoon, and that's why it's dry in there, because what I did is I had to come back through, throw some dry topsoil in there and re-roll it and get it all smoothed out. I'm gonna go ahead and sod around the house and down each side of the front part of the fence there, and then whatever I have left over, I'll do up this direction. As far as the ground around the fence itself, when it rains, it doesn't really wash it away, and it doesn't cause it to hollow itself out. So I can get away with not doing that for right now. So if you've never laid sod, they recommend that you have your dirt packed, because if you don't, and it's loose like this was, over time it's gonna settle and you're gonna have
all kind of wonky landscaping. So that's why I packed it, but it's probably too packed. So what I'm gonna do is just take this rake here and run over it and try and loosen it up just a little bit so that it's not that tightly packed. And that way it's got something for the new dirt on the sod to grab to. I don't want to rake it so much that I distort it. I just want to loosen and scratch the surface. I mean, that's how packed that is, which means I shouldn't have any settling. My sod is about 16.5 by about 23.5 inches. And it's freshly cut. I'd asked them if it was cut today and they said yes. And that's what you want. You don't want sod that's 4 days old because it's not liable to live. The other problem is I anticipated an inch of dirt and I got just barely a ½ inch. So that may cause some issues around my sprinkler heads. I may have to build these up around here and have a little hump. The biggest thing with sod is make sure you got no gaps between your pieces. And I should have kept that sod roller, but I didn't anticipate this today, but that's okay. Now, if I was doing long strips, I'd want to alternate the seams, but this is going to just be like this all the way down. It'll all be the same. And if I have to cut any, I've got this duct knife here that I'll use, and it may dull it, but that's okay. I can sharpen it. Well, it looks like this one will probably be okay. So, here's what we're going to do. That's tight, and my valve is right there. And what I wanted is I want the dirt, the top of the sprinkler head to be at the top of the dirt of the sod. My grass I typically cut at about 2 inches high. That should be plenty to run over this and not hit the sprinkler valve. And that looks like that's gonna work just perfect. Okay, this little piece we'll just throw away. One other thing I'm gonna do, I kind of forgot. So I'm gonna lightly water it since it's so dry on the top. And if it doesn't rain by the time I'm done, I'll come back around and water it really well with the hose. Now, a couple things here. One, got the sprinkler head right here to go around, not a problem as you saw, but I'm going to wind up cutting out around this because I'm going to put a piece of border in here, throw some gravel in there, so when I weed eat I don't keep smacking this, knocking the paint off and risk breaking it. And I'm using the serrated side, the smooth side didn't work as well. We're tight against there and that works perfect. For this particular grass, 450 square feet is a whole pallet. So I got half a pallet, so 225 square feet. And when I'm done, I just go around and step on it like this to get good contact with the dirt underneath and get rid of any air pockets. That's where the sod roller would have come in nice. Now, same thing for here. I'm gonna have a piece of border that's gonna come out to here and go across, keep this area here with no grass. And I'll put gravel again so I don't have to weed eat. Because before when I weed eat, I'd have to hand trim in here because the weed eater wouldn't get in there. And they're smacking these pipes and I worry about breaking them. Because going across this, I'm not gonna have any grass back there either. Because once my fence is down here, trim under it's going to be a pain and I'll just beat my fence up and I don't want to do that. Instead of trying to measure, I just cut it in place. I'll just put that piece right there for now. It may not be where it goes in the end, but that's where it's going right now. There, nice and tight. And with that, the sod's all laid and my foundation and fence watering project is all done. I will tell you, this project was labor intensive. It wasn't hard, it just took a lot of time and labor, way more than I thought it would. And I forgot to do the other half of my house, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I got a couple things I'm not gonna do. Well, one, I won't have to worry about retrenching for the cable line to go in, so I don't have to do that. But I'm not getting a trencher and trenching around the edge like I did on this project. Instead, I'm gonna do what I did the second round, and that is go get that tiller and just till the ground where I need the line to go. Much easier that way and haul the dirt off. Two, instead of hand packing the dirt
around the little piece of wood that I made my trench with. I'm gonna go get a plate packer and use a plate packer and pack it really tight that way. And maybe use the plate packer to pack the dirt on top of it. Don't know, might hand pack it. I really wasn't thinking ahead when I put this box in. It should have been a couple, 3 inches higher, because when I leveled this out to keep it from having water sit here, it still kind of has a low area here. I shouldn't have used the ground around it as my reference. I should have used the ground where it was gonna be. So that was my bad, but it still works okay. I've watered the yard pretty heavy. It doesn't sit around here, it kind of sits over there. And I have raised this box up a couple times to look at it, and I don't have any standing water in it, and that was my biggest thing. Oh, and if you're wondering about where'd all these rocks come all of a sudden, that's another video. You'll just have to subscribe to see it. Foundation watering system works really, really, really well around the house. I mean, it keeps it good and wet, and it does really good down each side of the fence and up along this side of the fence to, maybe about halfway up. When I say it works really, really well, what I mean is after I run it for say 5 minutes, I can see that the ground is really nice and wet all the way around up to here. Whereas up in this area, it's working. It's just the ground doesn't look wet from the surface, because believe me, I've gone back through and I dug down to make sure it was working, and the ground down next to it and around it is wet. It's not wet clear to the top. Like I say, when it gets up into about here, it works okay. You can see some areas where it's wet. It works down this area, but it doesn't work as well as like it does around there, in that I don't see a bunch of wet dirt. I'll see some spots where the dirt's wet. And I have a feeling it has to do with the distance it had to travel to get here as to why I don't have it soaking wet here, whereas it's real wet down there, even though I got a pressure reducer. Still got water coming up here, and it's still doing its job. It's just not soaking the ground like I was really wanting. But I have a feeling it's gonna do just fine. Now, granted, if you don't have a clay-based soil and you don't get real hot and dry and no rain for a whole summer, no, you're not gonna need to do this at your house. Where I'm at, I definitely need to do it, because I actually got a space over on the other side of the yard where I got a small sinkhole because it went so long without raining, and when it finally did, I had dirt collapse underneath and I had to fill it in. It's only probably about 4 or 5 inches deep, but it's about that big around. I won't have that problem next year because I'll have this system in over there. Now, to see all the work that went into part 1 of this project, which is quite a bit, just click on this link right down here. It'll take you to the video for part 1. If you're at all curious about all these flagstone stone pavers here, there'll be a link in the description for that video too. Now, if you want to see an outdoor project where it's more fun, it's not as labor intensive and hard, click on this link right here. It'll take you to a video where I replaced all these corner trims on the house and painted them and sealed them. It's a much more fun project, and it doesn't take near the labor. So until next time, happy DIY.